You're listening to Trims and Talks with Lungani Sabandi and Donald McLean.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
So we'll use that.
Yeah.
One thing tick of the tick thing.
Yeah. Now, so you've got an intro. As so far, have we had each of the episodes has got an intro of its own specific episode?
Yeah.
Have we said anything about what we're trying to get from the, as a general generic, this is what Trims and Talks is all about, that sort of stuff?
There is one thing that basically talks about Trims and Talk as what it is, but I think for me, today I was thinking in terms of the Barbers project, because it would be nice to kind of probably, you having been the one who was right from the outset to talk about the Barbers project and what you envisaged it as the shape.
And also how it's evolved.
Yeah, how it's evolved. For me, what has been interesting about this project is the fact that you came out of education, working in education in a high-powered, highbrow position to suddenly retire and then take up a project as the coordinator of the Black Barbers project. Okay, that's one of the things that has been very interesting for me. So what's the conversation with yourself when you actually saw this being advertised? What were your thoughts about actually even getting on board with the project?
Well, it's interesting what you say there because, as you say, I had been retired. I had been in education for 40 years. I had got to a senior position, which I was really pleased with, and I loved the job I did. So I worked at a sixth form college in Sheffield for 18 years, and it was a great job, one which was thoroughly rewarding, but it was extremely tiring, and I was ready to finish, and I finished loving every last minute of it. And that was the right time to finish, and I did nothing for a year. That was great, and I'd wanted to volunteer with SACMHA. When we spoke with David a couple of weeks back, and I asked David the question, why do we still need SACMHA 40 years on? I asked that question because SACMHA was one of the first black organisations I was aware of when I first came to Sheffield in the late 80s. And I was aware of it because I felt it was so important at the time that you had an organisation which was acknowledging black mental health, because the way in which I had seen and experienced mental health within the African Caribbean community growing up, and particularly within my own family, which I don't think was particularly different to anyone else's family, was that we didn't talk about it.
That's it.
That was as simple, didn't talk about it. So my sister had a number of stays in mental institutions, mental hospitals. I had a cousin who spent at least 30 years in sort of like mental institutions. And I knew lots of people in that situation, and I knew lots of people who became ill and got better, and became ill and got better, and there was a slightly, what can you say about it? We just took it as it just was. And I thought SACMHA, its existence, was saying it can't stay like this. We have to do something more. We have to make it known amongst ourselves, put pressure on organisations for something to be better. So that was back in the late 80s. So it must have stayed there with me all that time. So that when I retired, I wanted to volunteer with SACMHA.
Yeah.
Because I thought then, and I still think now, that in many respects, the mental health of black people in this country is sort of like indicative of how difficult it's been for us. You know, as they used to say, you know, back in the day, Jamaicans used to say when you went to Jamaica, a true England, black man go mad. and yeah, I think it's true. And David said that to us when he spoke to us a few weeks back. So it was from that type of background that when I saw the advert to work part-time with SACMHA for a year on a project called the Black Male Barbers Mental Health Project, that I was interested. And I wanted to find out what it was about and what it was trying to do as well. And I applied, and I was, you know, fortunate to get the job, and it's been a very interesting job. But if I take you back to what it set out to do, it's a project which is in conjunction or commissioned by the Health Education Authority.
Yes.
So they commissioned SACMHA to pursue this project.
Yeah.
And the project, from the outset, set out to engage with black barbers, initially really to see if we could get them trained in a very formal mental health training.
Okay.
Very early on, it was apparent to me in talking to barbers, that's not necessarily what they wanted. And actually, quite a few people I spoke to in the community, generally speaking, thought as well, they're the criticism of that idea, which is a criticism which comes from the notion of, we can't expect barbers to be mental health specialists.
Yes.
That's abdicating the authorities from their responsibility. So there was quite a strong criticism of that kind. And I was having to say to people, no, that's not the case. What we're looking for is that we're looking for barbers as a sort of like centre of community. Yes. That they have lots of conversations which pertain to mental health. And what we want to do is to continue that conversation with them. And we want to keep that conversation on the agenda as much as possible. And to encourage barbers to, you know, maybe keep on talking about it, maybe along the way, as most of us do, learn more.
Yes, that's it.
And most of us learn more by talking with one another.
That's it. That's it. Because in a conversation I had with this other brother who has been, he has been a barber for many, many years. One of the things that he said to me, he said, we have always been therapists. You know, when somebody comes to sit on, like on our chair, they will talk to us about the situation they are in, like we sometimes it's the articulation of that, or what it is that people are going through at that moment. And hence why I think for many communities, and this cuts across the races, is that, people always feel a sense of safety when they are in their barber's chair. Yeah. Hence why, like this week I had a conversation with a variety of other brothers and people I know around the idea of their memories of their initial barber experience, and that whole thing, like, why did you choose the barber that you chose? You know what I'm saying?
We joked the other day, didn't we? Which was, you can't cheat on your barber.
No, you can't.
You just can't really cheat on your barber.
And the barber always knows. I remember I was talking to this other young man at the office, James. He says, no, was it James? But another person was talking about the fact that the barber they had used, they had actually cut the back of their hair, like in sort of like a roundish kind of way, and their regular barber found out.
They always find out.
They always do. They know their handiwork. You know what I'm saying? They always do. But unlike many, for me, for me, I think maybe it's because my hairstyle is very easy, and I'm not really fussy about how I appear. Any barber will do.
Oh no! I'm very much I stick with the same barber.
You stick with the same.
I've been Andrew and Kevin. If you're out there, I stick with Andrew and Kevin.
No, it's the same. Because for me, like they're family. For me, they're family.
But I stick with. I like the idea of being with the same barber. Not because I like it, it's just because it feels right.
No, it does feel right.
You build up this relationship. Once you find that barber where you feel comfortable in the environment, you feel comfortable with the way in which they talk to you and interact with you, and the setting they've got as well, then you find yourself, you keep going back to it. And it's amazing how, they are like... the GP, you go to the same GP.
Yeah, you go to the same GP.
And the same dentist for 30 years. Well, that's the same for me with the barber.
With the barber,
and it's actually really, it's quite sort of like, I find it quite reassuring.
No, but that's the thing. It's like, I remember telling you about my first barbering experience because, like I said, I wasn't raised by my parents. I was raised by my grandparents. But when I actually moved with my parents, my father used to bring this guy with these barbering implements to our house to cut our hair. His idea of cutting our hair was to literally just come and ball us off. And just no trace of hair. Because my father was that kind of dude. I think because he had curlish hair and he didn't want to kind of people to see this foreign-looking hair on his head, he will cut it clean. So, for me, that's what he did to us, me and my brother. I think at that time, me and my younger brother were 2 years apart. So he will bring that guy, and that guy will shave us clean. And then when we went to church on a Sunday, there used to be this guy who will spit on his hand and then slap you on the head, with his hand, and he did. And
I tell you what, it sounds very traumatic.
It was traumatic. So we hated. For me, I remember when I left home, I did not cut my hair for a while. I actually grew dreadlocks as a result of that.
I remember you when you worked together at Norton.
At Norton College.
You had locks then.
Yeah, I had locks then. Because of that, the same kind of, it was as a result of the trauma of...
Yeah. And then when I saw you years later, you didn't have locks. I thought you just got old.
Oh, yeah, I did, bro. I did. No, I did. I really did. Because if you remember, within the black community, there's always been this unspoken thing about dreadlocks that it don't really give you the opportunities, we're in a mainstream, we're in a part of the world where people with dreadlocks, there's always this assumption that you are a consumer of certain substances that
yeah, but it's interesting, isn't it, the way in which dreadlocks now and locks and the many different styles which you see, and I'm envious. I'm envious of their youth. Just so there's a starter, you see young men now with all styles, different types of styles.
Oh, yes.
My first memories of barbershop is going with my dad, and we'd go to the barbershop, and we'd sort of say something about what we might want, and he'd just say, "No, just cut it." And that was it. You just had your head trim.
Yeah, there was
no sort of style.
No, there was never a style. Actually.
No style whatsoever. He just got it trimmed. Whereas today, you see such an array of styles. I've just been to the hospital to the and I was getting my eyes photographed, so I had to go, I don't know what they call it, but there was a young man in there, a young black man in there, and he had his locks, just sort of like trendy young man locks, and I thought, they look good, they do. And he's at work.
And he's at work.
Yeah, it worked.
Yeah,
but I was envious so much that actually there was that opportunity for him to have that style and for be able to be at work with that style as well. And I know that's not the case everywhere.
Yeah.
But in comparison to what it was,
Yeah.
You know, which was sort of like, you know, you're not going to have anything but. And you couldn't have anything but if you wanted to be able to go into mainstream work. There has been some sort of more space created. And you can see barbers now, they have they do so many types of cuts, don't they?
That's it. No, they do. I mean, I think the change, because usually it's like they say, you know, America sneezes and England catches a cold. Because I have seen, you know, like a lot of debacle in the States pertaining to hairstyles and stuff. Because I think Americans are more stringent pertaining to trying. I think there's always been this idea of an archetype, a black archetype. Yeah. You know, this clean cut, you know, sort of, you know, kind of black man who doesn't our Caucasian brethren don't fear. You know what I'm saying? He has to be clean cut and well shaven and stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
And when you suddenly kind of come into the workspace with dreadlocks, it sort of, you know, kind of sends people in a spin. And also, I think for our people, when they go into those spaces, is that whole thing of when you go in with an afro or dreadlocks, there's always the curiosity. Oh, let's feel how it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let me touch it to see how it feels.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? And which can be very
anything which is invasive,
problematic.
Like
it's very
problematic. It's invasive. It's racist. There's so many things.
There's so many things. But then on the other hand, is it though? It's just pure curiosity. Even though I know for us, we will never go to. I remember. You know, I remember I must have ruffled a friend's son, his hair. Yeah. You know, little white boy. Yeah. And he wasn't happy.
What?
No, the little boy wasn't happy with that. But that's the thing. We do that, and we normalize, you know, invading people's spaces. You know, be it their hair, be it their clothes. Yeah. We do it as if we have permission. But in essence, he was right to feel some type of way. Yeah. And for us, on the other hand, somehow we are not. We don't seem to have. It's like our refusal to have our spaces kind of invaded somehow is met with some.
Yeah, maybe what you've highlighted there is that if we're talking about, you know, feeling like our own personal space has been invaded, we have to be mindful of not doing it to others.
To others, that's the thing.
And you know, and it's particularly so for young people, isn't it? As an elder, you often feel as if you've got a right to just sort of like do that, which you don't have a right.
You don't have
a
right.
You know, you have to be careful, especially today, where people would say, "Well, actually, that's unsolicited."
Yes,
it should not happen.
It shouldn't happen. Yeah.
And you know that thing where people will sometimes you've got something on your face, and they'll just come and take it off your face.
You know what I'm saying?
But I think it's a great thing because it reminds me of being young.
Or that whole thing where the elder will kind of spit on their thumb, you know, and say,
you've got something on you, and before they allow you to actually take it off, they've got and
they've gone and taken it. You know what I'm saying? But that's the thing.
That reminds me of elders. You know, it takes me back to being, you know, young again and a young adult, and actually smiling about it at the time.
Yeah,
and you don't get it as much now.
No.
But whenever it does happen, I still smile at it.
But for you, I mean, you grew up in this part of the world.
Yeah,
you were born here?
Grew up in Britain. Yes, born in Britain and grew up in Britain.
So in terms of doing life, do you do life as a West Indian or you do life as a Brit?
Oh, that's a big question. If you watch Clive Murray when he's in the Caribbean, and I'm not liking myself to Clive Murray, right? In any way at all. He's, you know, so successful and etc. But he's in this setting with this clothes designer, and very smart, elegant young man, and who was born in Jamaica, raised in the UK, and he's been back in Jamaica for 9 years. And this young man sees himself as, when he's asked the question, how British and how Jamaican is he? He says that although most of what he knows with what he does for his work is British, he feels more at home in Jamaica.
In Jamaica, yeah.
Whereas Clive Mowry says it's the British side which is the stronger side.
But that's
I think that's probably me. That is me. Well, it's not probable. It is. It is that the world I know is this world.
Is this world. But that's the thing, because I recently just came back from Zimbabwe, and that's embarrassingly after 22 years.
It's a good while, isn't it?
It has been a good while. And as much as the country has changed, it's still the same.
Yeah.
Because I think in terms of kind of human interaction, people are still the same. But one thing I noticed is the resilience, especially in my city, which is Bulawayo. I found the people it's like somehow everyone is selling something. So, because gone are the factories and all that kind of stuff. The infrastructure is sort of, it's deteriorated, like in that time, but to a bad state. But I will not kind of go into that whole thing of saying, the country's failing and stuff. But I'll say one thing I found admirable about our people is our resilience and the ability to make $1 out of 50 cents.
Yeah.
That kind of concept of...
It's quite a lot of entrepreneurial.
Yes, the thing.
Yeah. But,
that's the thing.
But how did you feel then in terms of home?
That's the thing. I felt conflicted in a way, because I have a home here. My children are here. My wife is here. But my mother is there and my siblings are there. Yeah. And I was also consciously aware that because of the time that has passed, even though as much as we are constantly, we are in contact with each other, the WhatsApp and whatever social media, it never really, nothing prepares you for the physicality of being in each other's presence. But I think over the years, somehow the person I am now is because I'm on my own 2 feet now. I'm no longer the little boy that basically couldn't wait to leave home at 16, because him and his father didn't really... You can't have, they say you can't have two bulls in the same...
You can't have two bulls in one house.
One house. Because I thought I was a big man.
Well, you do at 16.
Yeah, that's
there can only be one man.
My point exactly. So, but then now, because I am the eldest, my father is gone, my mom is still there. And so suddenly I'm in that position where everybody's looking up to me to sort of make the big decisions about the family. And I found myself very conflicted, because I'm thinking, okay, in essence, there's nothing tying me to them except my birth certificate. I have a British passport and every ID is British. Now to suddenly kind of go into the space and make changes, which I know I will not be around to see him sustained, will be somehow, irresponsible.
Yeah, do you have a right to?
I don't. That's exactly what I say to my brother, because my brother lives in South Africa and he's been there over 20 years. I was like, to be honest, I remember telling my youngest brother who's there at home with my mom and my sister, I said, you guys, as much as I put money into the house and what have you, this is your space. I have no right, because I don't see myself, retiring to that house. Yeah. If I was to retire to any space in Zimbabwe, probably it would be a farm somewhere.
Well, you know what you're talking about there as well. I mean, when we talk about Trim's talk, that's one of the things I love about going to the Barbers, because you can be in the Barbers and that type of conversation, someone will sit in the chair and the barber will say, how's things? And say, I've just got back from. And then And how was it? How do you feel about it? This, that, different, all sorts of stories. And then other people in the same room, they're waiting for their trim or just hanging around there. They will say, yeah, well, last time I went back and this, that, and the other. And they'll pop a few jokes, and there'll be a very serious point coming out there as well. You know, for some people, you know, it's very much about, home. Connecting with home. For others, it's like the first time I've ever been, and I've got to 55. And I know plenty of people like that. I know people who've never been. They're born here and never been back to wherever it is their family came from. Yeah. And then some people go when they're very late, they're very mature people, and what that's like for them as well. So there's a whole variety of responses which can get sort of elicited from that conversation in that barbershop. And what I really like about when you get those conversations is that you get that variety of experience. That's it. Because I don't think there's anywhere else within the, say, black community where you can get such a range of black men.
But that's the thing. I mean, I remember, I think it was you who said, it's only in the barber shop where you can sit next to a lawyer, to a government official, to a footballer.
To the most dangerous bad man.
To the most dangerous bad man in the city. And you coexist in that space. Yes. Without, it's like it's a safe space. It's a sanctuary for many.
Yeah.
Because it's not always that something will kick off in a barbershop.
Well, I've never seen anything really kick off. I've heard people raise their voice, but most of the time that raised voice is just people getting excited about talking about something, and that raised voice, which in another setting, it would be these black men are too loud.
My point exactly.
But in this setting, it's the place where you can be that people are talking over one another, people are whatever, and then they're jumping up and they're in your space.
There's a passion. I think there's a passion about the barbershop. I think for me, it's like, it's akin to an experience I usually have in the sauna.
Yeah.
At the same gym, because we go to the same gym.
Yes.
And there's been times that we will start a topic of some sort, and voices will be raised, and they'll be passionate, and there will be disagreements and what have you. And I think for us as men, there is always a need for, because back home we have this Italy, I know certain parts of the world will have the similar kind of concept where men will sit around with other men, and young men will be listening from the sidelines, kind of as men, basically. It's like at Hyde Park Corner, where somebody is presenting some thought or idea, and other men, kind of challenge that thought process and stuff. And as a result, either the thing that you had in your spirit, you are able to articulate it and get it out of there.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because I went to Marseille last year with my son. We went to watch a football match. And Marseille is probably the most diverse city in France.
In France,
Very, very large Arabic population. And when you go down the streets in Marseille, you'll see these coffee houses. And there's just men outside of them.
Yes.
And if you went to somewhere, anywhere around the world, there will be some sort of setting where men gather in a communal way, and they will, talk their talk. We will talk our talk, shoot the breeze, call it what you will there. But clearly, that is something which is universal.
No, it is universal,
And the barbershop, I think, plays that out. I mean, if you saw the play Chronicles of a Barbershop, I think that's what it was called, and it came to Sheffield a few years ago, and actually it was the day I was going to see the play. I went to my barbershop and I was asked, what are you doing today, etc. I said, well, I'm actually going to go and watch this play, Chronicles of a Barbershop. And they said, yeah, two of the actors are here now. Get in there and train. But that was a play where it had, I think the settings were London, Johannesburg, Lagos, and Nairobi.
Oh.
So these 4 different settings, and they were sort of like cutting back and forth to these different settings. But what you got was that in each of these settings, there was a story.
There was a story.
The barbershop contained the stories of these people there. And they were sharing their stories. But all the time what you got as well was that there was a real commonality. Yes, they were in different parts of the world, but they were very, very common.
Yeah, very common.
Yeah, any of us could have gone to that barbershop in Nairobi, that barbershop in Johannesburg, that barbershop in Lagos, and we would have recognised it.
That's the thing. But that's the thing. Because sometimes, for me, I don't have any reference to an earlier part, except like I said, the traumatic, being the barber coming to our house. I don't have any reference point except like when I left home and I had the jerry curl at that time.
Well, you should be telling people that.
You remember I am of that age, because really most of my education was around film, like we saw a lot of American movies and stuff, and I remember when they coming to America was a thing. Yeah, our barbers that side, you didn't really have a traditional barber, so except like a hair salon. Because by that time I was in the capital city, so I was living we were living on our own. We were students, and that whole sort of like the jerry curl thing, and we were around the because most of us were creatives, either dreadlocks or some other crazy hairstyle. So I went through that whole jerry curl phase. I'm sure there's some images somewhere on the on the interweb. No, I hope not. But on some magazine, because I was doing a lot of modeling, even in Zim at that time, and I was also writing for one of the local magazines. Yeah. But I remember that phase, but it wasn't a traditional way you found men. This was like a mixed. It was a salon. It wasn't the barbershop.
Well, I mean, that's very different to me, because my memories of barbershops goes all the way back to the 60s, and I've got a very vivid memory of going to a barbershop in Nottingham, and it was called Brown's, and I remember going there, and it's 1969.
Oh, that's the year I was born.
Oh, is it 1969? Yes, so I'm a big man compared to you. And then I was a big cricket fan.
All right.
And they had on the radio the test match between England and West Indies. And this is Gary Sobey's team. And Basil Butcher is batting, and he scored 91. There was a 3 test match series, and West Indies lost 2-0. And everyone in there getting their hair cut, they were all talking about it, and they were all having a go at Gary Sobey, saying that he can't captain, he can't do this, he can't do that, which he wasn't a good captain, he was a poor captain. But they went 4 years without winning a match.
Okay.
And then they came back in 1973 under Rohan Kanai and beat England 2-0. And again, in the barbershop, there's one occasion there where, I can't remember what happened, but there was an umpire Buller.
Yeah.
Umpire Buller, his name was, and he used to cheat. So when England were LBW, he wouldn't give them LBW and all that sort of business there. And something he must have done one of those decisions. And Rohan Kanai, the captain there, he's from Guyana, Indian captain, and he wouldn't let it happen. He just in that Minago anyway, and there was and all the guys, all these big men in there, would say yes, I saw it go. But they would listen to it on the radio, and the radio played it. And them days, cricket, West Indian cricket, was a lifeline in terms of this was something which really mattered to, the then West Indian community.
Yes.
It was something which we were good at, and that was just before we were going to become brilliant, when we were going to have world-beating team there. And them guys there loved it, and they could talk about it, and I was really immersed in it. And the other sport which used to be on all the time then was boxing. And Muhammad Ali.
Oh, yes.
And, they talk about Muhammad Ali and talk about the fights with Muhammad Ali and Joe Frazier. But Muhammad Ali and there was a big photo of Muhammad Ali. And it's when the first fight against Sonny Liston.
Oh, yes.
And the one where you've got Ali astride Sonny Liston, who's on the canvas.
Oh, it's on the canvas,
and that was the pride of place above in the middle of the wall there. So when you were waiting to get your hair trimmed, you could just see this colour photo of Muhammad Ali there looking, that beautiful boxer he was.
Yes.
And he's just there. And so it was that for me is, I got such rich memories of going to the barbershop then. Funny ones. It was also, I have to say, the only place as a young man, as a boy, not a young man, as a boy, where, other than home, I saw lots of black men together. And the thing, and this is interesting, I have to think about this. I went down to work in London when I was 18. So it's 1978. And I'm working in a factory. And I saw old black men with grey hair. And then we're probably in their 50s. Because those days, when growing up, if you think of my parents were 30 years older than me, that I'm 18, my parents are only late 40s.
That's it, isn't it?
And they were the old people.
They were. No, they were the old
So
people.
I had to wait till I was 18 before I saw genuinely old black people. I'd never seen genuinely old black people.
Yeah.
So that barbershop is where I saw older black men.
Yeah.
And my first memories of them, they're probably just late 30s and early 40s. And
Yeah. It's like, it's funny you say that, because for me, one thing that I found curious about you, as much as you mention your Britishness and visiting Jamaica at some point.
Yeah.
What do you cook?
What do I cook? I cook. What do I cook? I cook many different foods.
Yeah.
So I will cook. So I'm trying to think what I've cooked over. I will cook Italian foods, pasta, like people do, pasta. I will cook chicken. If I'm doing chicken, it will be Caribbean chicken first.
Yeah.
I will cook. I did curry goat this weekend. Green seasoning as well, so I'm pleased with that. So I would say, when I say it's not British food I cook, I mean, although I do like British food, I'm a meat and potato man nearly. Meat, potato man and vegetables.
Yeah.
So it's a very mixed diet of standard sort of like British, it's a mix of food.
Okay.
Yep. But I would say you can't have meat which is not seasoned, though. No matter what type of season, it's got to be seasoned. You can't have plain meat.
You can't have plain meat.
You can't eat plain meat.
Have plain meat indeed.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. So, what did you teach your children? Did you teach your children how to cook?
No, I don't think I did really.
So, how much of their West Indian
They will come
heritage?
to me if they wanted to eat West Indian food. But I can't say that I think it'd be wrong of me to say that I cook West Indian food, Jamaican food as a staple.
Oh, okay.
It's not what I do. And it's been interesting going to SACMHA because the Thursday lunch club,
Yes.
which is very full,
Yeah.
and actually always has a lot of men there.
Yeah.
And and there will men come and collect their takeaway as well.
Yeah.
So I'm sure them guys can cook, but actually there is something about, I'm just going to get it cooked this way.
Yeah.
And
yes.
it tastes better.
Yeah, because one of the things I always find, kind of slightly lacking, especially in Sheffield, is I know we have like the Jamaica kitchen on City Road and what have you, but I think, and probably kind of rum keg on Aberdale Road, or Marcia's. But I think Marcia's is moved.
Yeah, there's another one near me up in Maresbrook, which is...
what's his name? The young fella. Bishops. Yeah, Bishops.
Yeah, you mean Sean?
Yeah, Sean.
Bishop's Bistro.
Yeah, Bishop's Bistro.
Yeah.
I'll say there's a relatively small sort of like West Indian restaurant, like the eating spots.
There isn't somewhere where you can sit and eat.
Yeah, where you can sit and eat. Yeah, you got takeaways.
And they have been in the past.
Yeah,
they've come and gone.
Yeah,
but they do say restaurants are the easiest way to lose your money.
Yeah, well, it's true. It's true. I mean, they say there's no love so sincere as the love for food. On the other hand,
absolutely, yes.
So when you go to a restaurant, there's a chance that your pocket will be slightly empty because there's always that very next thing. You go in there with an idea that I'm gonna have this meal, but then suddenly you're thinking after a meal, I need pudding, and then after pudding, I need the drink.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So you're definitely right. It's definitely a sure way to lose your money. But so kind of coming back to you, so about around the whole food idea and stuff. Would you say that did your parents teach you? Were you ever present in the kitchen?
Oh God, I was present in the kitchen. But it's interesting that when I went to college when I was 18, and I'm sharing a house with other students, the white students, and I remember they cooked a meal, or some guy cooked a meal. Let's call it spaghetti bolognese, or they cooked something, and I remember eating it, thinking that's not very nice. And I remember going home to my mum's and saying to her, I had some food and it wasn't very nice, and I think I must have asked her, how do you do yours? How do we do it? Yeah. And I knew how we did it. I just needed it to be confirmed. This is how we do it, because like most people in my generation, if your mum worked, what you had to do during the holidays is that she would tell you, I'm home at 5:30. Make sure that you do this. So, for instance, you have to peel a potato, peel the yam, peel this, take out the seeds out of the whatever it is you got out of the rice, etc. There, stone out of the rice. So you do all those things there, prepare. So even if you're spending all day watching cricket on television, come 5:30, you jump up. And you get yourself in that kitchen and you start to do those things for your mum. And my memory of my mum when she got home at 5:30, 6 o'clock is she used to take her coat off, she'd have a cup of tea, and then she'd start cooking. She's been working all day.
You've been working all day.
Yeah, and it's only later on in life when I look back on it. At the time, it was the dread of she's going to come home, and if we haven't done something, we're going to get a right tongue lashing. She's going to really tell us off there. And that's what I was concerned about then, or what I wasn't seeing then, was that she would be coming home, taking her coat off and cooking for us straight. And when she finished cooking, and one of us then would have to wash up, she used to have a big overlocking machine. So a big overlocking machine, a big table in the corner of the living room. Yeah. And the big sort of like sewing machine, which had a foot pedal on it as well.
Oh yeah, one of those.
A foot pedal. And she would be just sewing and making dresses and things like that. And she'd make dresses for people and all sorts of things for people. And when she'd made these dresses, so for instance, someone's going back home.
Yes.
and they'd say, "Well, you have to make a dress for me, Miss Matt. Can you make a dress for me?" And she would do. And then when she'd made the dress, she would then give it to one of her children. Say she gave it to me, and it'd be in a brown bag, and you have to hold it good. I said, "Take this to Miss Palmer, and at £20 we want for it, and make sure you come back quick." And when you went there to Miss Palmer, and Miss Palmer would look at it and she'd give you the money, and then you had to come straight back. And when you come straight back, you'd be touching your pocket all the time to make sure the money's in your pocket. So you couldn't just go off and play. Because if you went off and played and forgot about it, and then you lost the money, you don't even want to go there. You don't want to go there. So I used to come back straight from wherever it was I'd been to the other side, like maybe a half an hour walk, and I'm coming back and I'm padding my pocket all the time, making sure the money's there. And when you reach, and your mum would say, "You having money?" And she just put her hand out and you give it to her. And again, we all tell stories and memory stories, but and that, back to the barbershop there, that's another place where, another reason why I love the barbershop, because it's a great place for memories. It's a great place for remembering a time past, a way of being, and some of the guys there, who will be there, who they have a more vivid memory than I do.
That's it, man. That's it.
They've got better, some things have to be said in a certain way. So, for instance, a certain Jamaican patois way, which that saying has to be said. You think, I've not heard that one from time. And it does make, it uplifts you. It makes you reconnect with something. And it makes you also quite sort of like, and one of the takes which has been really, really, really powerful of recent years, 20 years maybe, is the way in which, as you get older, you look on your parents in a different way.
That's so true.
And you look on them not, and that's not taking away all the personal difficulties you may have had with your parents, but you're talking about your parents' generation, and you recognise the sacrifice which that generation made. And that is definitely something you hear in the barbershop. The discourse, to use that sort of phraseology, the conversation in the barbershop is so full of appreciation for that generation.
For that generation. Because I know, like we're talking earlier about the fact that SACMHA now has an elderly project, and the coordinator, and Mavia Gray will be taking the helm on that one, and I'm just excited to see the kind of work that will be done with our elderly, and also last time we were at the Barbers, when we were talking about the presentation that's currently at the museum. That I know Andrew mentioning that one of the persons that they forgot to show was Johnny Barber.
No, they were talking about Sam.
Sam
and John and Shejon.
All
those people who came before.
Those those barbers who came before, they forgot to include them in the what do you call it, in the exhibition. And I think, for us, considering that unfortunately we haven't been a community that writes a lot of books, we have lost a big chunk of our historical narrative in the very people who lived that life.
And I think that, again, that the barbershop's brilliant from the point of view of, it's such a great sort of clearinghouse for telling people what's going on. And if anyone was present, and I'm sure many people will know about that exhibition via the barbershop.
Yes. Because for me,
because it brings it to life. The conversation which takes place in the barbershop brings to life something. So you might see, a little flyer, a social media flyer which says X, Y, and Z, and that can look and feel a bit sort of like, Yeah, it sounds interesting.
And that's
but
it.
when you go into a barbershop and they're talking about an event, and they bring life to it,
and that's it.
And there's a vividness there to it, because there is this, I believe there's a beauty in the way in which people talk and the conversations which take place in the barbershop.
Yeah, because we have been in the presence of Andrew and Kevin, and they have a way of there's this creativity and humor that's infused.
Yes, and you can be the butt of it.
Yeah, you can be the butt of it. Yeah, well, yeah. I know in my case, I was recently a part of one of their observations. to my. This is the thing, there's something about family because family will drag you down fully knowing that it's not the way it is. You know what I'm saying?
So, and maybe that's what a barbershop can create.
Yeah, they can create
a sense of family.
But
if you go there on a regular basis, and I was at something last Wednesday, and it was at Sheffield Gospel Choir.
Yes.
And that was at Zest. And that was a great occasion. And I have to say, I'm becoming a bit of a real fan of Sheffield Gospel Choir.
Those guys are good. Yeah, it's Janine. Janine Dyer,
I mean, I was up dancing, etc. there, and I think some people thinking, look at him dance there. I thought he was a stiff man. I was dancing away there because I think they touch parts of you.
Yes.
Which, you think to yourself, that is, again, it takes you back somewhere. And I think last week Janine said, it's Janine, isn't it?
Yeah, Janine.
She said, she was introducing a song, and she said, this takes her back to when she was at the Pentecostal church back in North London. And as she said it, and then she started to sing, it took me back to the Pentecostal church I went to.
Yes.
And I wasn't a church person. I just went because my mum sent me there.
That's the thing. Many of us actually.
That's how it was.
Yeah, that's how it was.
But it took me straight back there. It was Sunday, 1970.
Yeah.
And that's, again, Janine and that Sheffield Gospel Choir there, they're beautiful.
No, they are. They I think they are doing a great service, especially in the, what's the term, promulgation of the black musical tradition, which we find through gospel music. But one thing I love about that choir is the fact that it is a reflection of the community in which we live.
Yeah.
It invites all races, all ages.
Yes,
stuff,
but its root.
Its root is in.
Yeah, if you're going to be in this, you have to take this on board.
Yes.
This is how it is.
Yes,
and they're beautiful to see, they're beautiful to listen to, they take you back somewhere.
Yeah.
And whenever they're playing next, I will go to, because it just gives me a sort of like a high.
And to me, you know why I've spoken to Janine before about probably wanting to have a conversation with her around her musical influences, but also about the continuation of that music as a genre, and also the way that music plays in our well-being.
Yes. Well, you're just talking. I was just thinking, we were talking before about the death of Michael Mosley.
Yes.
And I was saying that actually I've done a lot of listening to Michael Mosley. He had this interesting Radio 4 program called Just One Thing.
Yes.
And in a way, Janine's Sheffield Gospel Choir is like just one thing. If there's just one thing you can do today, is listen to Sheffield Gospel Choir, because it will lift you and make you feel better. And I was watching the people in that choir sing.
Yes.
And you saw their faces. Yeah. They were loving it.
Yes.
And when you see other people loving something and smiling and happy in themselves there, it's quite hard not to feel, no matter what you're feeling, not similar. It's contagious.
Yes, it's contagious. It's contagious. Oh yeah, definitely. I think music. They say play music in the jungle and send the lions to sleep. Well, no, I think it was.
You're only thinking there about Lion King then. Or was it Madagascar?
It's a lion. It's a lion in a Will Smith rap. Back in the day when he was a rapper back then. Yeah.
No, I just thought the cartoon, the Disney cartoon. I thought, are you auditioning for?
Well, you never know, bro. You never know. Hey, because someone could be listening who's able to talk to someone about something, and before we know it, either our podcast will be featuring on the BBC or something. You never know.
So Janine is someone to get. We need to.
No. It'd be nice to talk to Janine because I think, especially considering that June, they say June is the month for men's mental health.
I think you said to me that's the United States.
Yeah, that's in the United States.
Yeah, but as they say,
because here it's
it don't
May.
really matter what month.
Yes,
it is every month.
It is every month. Yeah, and I think the more we become sort of kind of normalize the conversations around mental health daily. And celebrate the fact that, not only just celebrate, but, at least I think we learn to be slightly kinder.
And you know what? I was thinking there about, there are so many things we know which can make us feel a bit better.
Yes.
And I'd like to think that there's so many things in Sheffield which in our community which can make you feel better. I was only talking about the gospel choir because it did make me feel better. And there's also a guy there who I don't know his name. I keep forgetting his name. I think it's Ray, who I've only seen a few times at the barbershop.
Yes.
And
Raymond.
Yes, Raymond. Yes.
Yeah, Raymond.
And I don't
Palmer.
know him, but he did what I love about black people.
Yes.
I didn't see him, but I just felt someone prod me from behind.
Yeah. Yes.
And he said, "You're right." And that is, it's just that way, prod you from behind, and you look around. Yes.
You see a brethren, you see a brethren.
And there's a beautiful thing there because
There's a thing. Let me tell you, bro. There is nothing as beautiful as when, I won't say just black men, but when men meet.
Yes.
And we meet, and because really, this is the thing. I think sometimes it's like, I say to someone this week, listening to all people basically having their bond. I was like, this is like reminiscent of the playground. Because as much as our bodies ache more and we are slower and stuff, when we meet as brothers, it's like we're back in the playground. It's still the same banter, taking fun. If we could run, we'll probably run and prance around and do all manner of stuff.
And it might be. I mean, I know. I do a walking group every month.
Yes.
We do, and that's one thing. So it's one thing. Another one thing which I do for myself. I'm sure people have many other one things they do.
Yeah.
But this one thing which I do, there has never been an occasion when I've been on that walk when I've not felt better than when I started it. Yes. I may not have felt brilliant.
Yes.
But I felt better than when I started
it.
And that is due to the companionship.
That's it.
And it's due to the fact that actually it's like being your 15-year-old self.
Yes.
It's the joy, the way in which conversations come and go. You can catch up with people there. It's just a lovely thing. So it's just one thing for me, and everyone's got lots of one things they do and can do and should do.
And should do. And should do. I think, that is the operative word, and should do. Because, I think sometimes we make excuses not to do stuff. And for me, it's like, I'll say probably over time, because I am aware that, sometimes we when it comes to hanging around with other brothers, we got men talk, we got the meetings up at Faith's barbershop. I think there is a lot of small groups meeting everywhere. I think one thing I'll probably if I was in the position to suggest one thing, I would say find a group that resonates with you and do that thing. I mean, I know you have an elopement where you spend time, kind of gardening and stuff. Find the one thing that works for you.
Yeah.
And stick to that thing, because it could be the thing that helps you through your dark moments, so to speak.
I think you're very right there.
Yeah.
Just that one thing.
Yeah. So thank you for those who have an opportunity to listen to us ramble on about life in general. We don't get as much as we talk in the office, we never really get the opportunity to bring people into our conversations. Because for me, it's like every time I sit with you and we just shoot the breeze, I always go home invigorated. And I got other ideas and thoughts on how to kind of make this accessible to a lot of other people.
Well, maybe as well there, Lungani, as that one thing, find someone you can talk with.
That's it?
Yeah, maybe that's another one thing. Find someone you can just talk with and have a good conversation with them.
Yes. And so we end on that one. Yes. Thanks a lot, man.
Right,
thank you.
That seemed to work quite well, that did.
It did.
Because I think actually what we've got there was that we kept
Thank you for joining us today. Yes. Don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform and never miss an episode. Until next time, keep those conversations going and the clippers buzzing.